Welcome to the show where advocacy meets action. I'm your host, Linda, a dedicated community leader, a voice for the voiceless. Join me as we explore the stories and strategies that shape our local and global communities while inspiring positive change. Be sure to follow me on Instagram at Linda Advocate and follow my blog at the Times of Israel, where my articles consistently end with calls to action to encourage readers to participate in constructive change. Today, I'd like to introduce a very, very special guest. And I know that I say this all the time, and they really are all very special guests. However, I'm very excited because this particular individual has gone above and beyond facing personal and financial risks. She has become the unintended advocate. Her journey into the realm of social change propelled, it seems, and we'll find out soon, by October 7th tragedies. And of course, I'm talking about the very loved Caroline D'Amore. Caroline is the founder and CEO of Pizza Girl. She wears various hats. She's a DJ, an actress, a model who worked with Stella McCartney, Diane von Furstenberg, and others, and truly a socialite. You can find pictures of her all over the net with Paris Hilton, Kim Kardashian, Nicole Richie, and so many others. Caroline, welcome.
Hello, how are you?
Amazing because you're here. Caroline,
Well, that was a really incredible intro that I don't feel worthy of, but
it's
thank you.
It's all you, it's all truth. And you know what, Caroline, I will tell you, you are so beloved in the Jewish community. I know my community in particular in Brooklyn, New York, absolutely adores you. They fawn over you. I think you see it on your page. We're just blessed to have someone like you speaking out for us. Caroline, I have tremendous respect for you because what I've noticed about you is that you have power of conviction. And to me, that stems from good stock. Can you share a little bit about your upbringing?
Yeah, absolutely. So I have like really started to kind of think about how I ended up this way, if you want to say it like that. But because a lot of people have asked me, they're like, how do you not how are you not worried? How are you not, worried about your career or this or that? Or are you scared for your life? Like all these crazy things I get asked all the time. And I watch a lot of people that are really living in a lot of fear right now, and it makes me feel just so sad because I think that we all just really have to remember that life is very, very short. Unfortunately, we've been reminded that recently on a grand scale. But for me, I realized life was short when I was 5 years old. And, I lost my mother. And it was really hard. My whole life was hard because I didn't have a mom. You know what I mean? So it was just, I really had to build kind of like a thick skin because I didn't have that kind of nurturing protector. Um, and dads don't always know what's going on and, can't really blame him. My dad did the best he could. He had four little girls. We were 4, 5, 7, and 11 when my mom died, and he was left with like, you know, he didn't have the nannies, he didn't have this and that. People think because we grew up in Malibu that we're like some rich family, but we really are, middle class, hardworking. My dad, we only lived here and got to go to the public school because my dad had a pizza restaurant here, you know. So I grew up in a
Have
really.
a nonna? Like, usually the nonnas are like they take over. Did you have? I'm Italian. I don't know if you read the email I sent you,
I
but yeah.
did, yes, and I know my dad's gonna know all of those people that you mentioned actually.
Did you have a nonna that like kind of took over? Because
So
it's
we
are
called
really
her
big.
mom, and yes, I don't know why we called him mom and papa, but we did, but the only thing was my dad moved to the West Coast and they were all Boston
Oh
and on the
wow.
East Coast. So we would go back there for summers and it would like totally give my dad a break. I remember when we were younger, he would like fly us to, Boston, and we'd spend time with my mom's side, my dad's side, and all of that. And it would give him a little break to be able to like open a new restaurant and, do certain things over the summer. So we definitely had that. But we lived on the West Coast and it was just us, our little immediate family. Um, so, it was really hard. It was hard, but it also created this person that I am today. So I'm super grateful for all of um my rough goes and hardships, shall I say.
Mm.
Yeah, because it made me who I am. And I think that it's hard to see that when you're going through it and you're just like, life is so unfair, like every Mother's Day, every birthday, everything on my wedding day, like all these things. And I was just like, why isn't she here? Like, what did I do to deserve this? What did she do to deserve that? Like, it made me question everything all the time. But it also, I went through different phases in my life of knowing life was short. When I was a teenager, I used it as basically like a crutch to kind of party and be like, whatever, life is short. Like, I'm punk rock. I'm gonna go be a DJ. And like, when you said that intro on me, it was funny because it feels like some of that stuff, yes, it's all on the internet, but it's a lifetime ago. And I
Metamorphosized into who you are today. Yeah, sure, of course.
Yeah, absolutely. And I had a lot of things I had to go through without like ever knowing like how to go through it, that girls go through, and not really having that support. My dad didn't end up finding someone else until I was a teenager, much older, actually, like late teens. And we were never close. So that whole figure just didn't exist. And the first time I even like, um, you know, thought about being a mom was when I was all of a sudden a mom. So even just learning how to do all of that was just wild. But I think growing up kind of like as a teenager, the girl from, the wrong side of the beach, shall I say. All my friends, like you mentioned, were just, you know, loaded and famous. And when I mean loaded, I mean rich and just all of those things. And like I was literally trying to like keep up with the Kardashians, and they were all my friends. And um I I like tried to like fit in really, I guess. And my way of doing that was to be the DJ. It was like, okay, I dropped out of high school very early. My last completed grade was ninth grade. So I didn't have that kind of like parenting that kind of kept me, like home. So I moved to New York at a very young age. I learned how rough the world really is, especially to young females that are trying
Fair
to,
share. Yeah.
yeah, and I just kind of like made my way.
And not so young females too, by the way. I'm
What was
sure
that?
you know. And not to just to young females, to females in general.
Yes, definitely. But I think living in New York City by yourself at 17
Oh
brings
my
a
god.
lot of challenges. Like I would never let my daughter, especially after everything I went through, and witnessed and experienced. And I think
Think those
that
experiences that you had, growing up, like you were saying, without your mom and in New York City, without, someone to watch over you, maybe you saw things that kind of made you feel like you want to always support the underdog and just stand for justice. Do you think that's what?
without a doubt, I had a really rough experience in New York. Um, and years later, still didn't know who that person was.
No pressure, but do you want to share that with us?
Sure. I mean, I've mentioned it, I think, on another podcast before, and it's actually coming out on my soon-to-be podcast. But I ended up going to what I thought was a modeling casting. It turns out, it was, which I didn't find out years later. So anyway, this long story short, I ended up in Jeffrey Epstein's house, thinking,
No.
yeah, thinking I was going to a modeling audition. And I realized in that moment that I definitely have like a fight in me, that I think I developed being motherless, believe it or
That's
not. So
was it
when I
Jazane
realized,
Jazane Max, whatever her name, Maxwell, she's the one that recruited you?
no, but she was there, a young model who I thought was my friend actually was like, this is a huge, producer of all these big fashion
What?
shoots and
I mean,
fashion shows. Yeah, and
yeah.
she was like, you need to come to this audition. He books Victoria's Secret, he books this, he books that. And I was like, oh my God, okay. I was just a dumb 17-year-old, and I show up to this
God.
magnificent brownstone, and there was this, butler and like all these crazy photos all over the wall. And what's crazy is, so anyway, I get taken into a room, realized very quickly what was happening when a man walked in with a towel and
Oh
tried
my
to
God.
grab me. Yeah. And then I,
Scandalous.
Yeah, and then I screamed and actually scared the living shit out of him, which is really interesting. I was like, I turned into like a aggressive, very aggressive person, and I was like, you
You.
know, I like I said like get the F off me and I like screamed and then he jumped off the table and like was like no like this is a misunderstanding, something like that, and then I started running and then I found the butler and I was like how the hell do I get out of here, and he like showed me the way out, and then I literally ran from the Upper East Side all the way down and did never looked back. And I remember my best friend and I would always talk about that because we wanted to figure out who that was, we wanted to find him, we wanted to like you know make sure he wasn't doing this to other people, that type of thing. And it honestly, it haunted me. It really haunted me. And I never figured out who it was until years later. And honestly, recently, an ex-boyfriend of mine had watched a documentary and he said, that story you told me, he goes, I got to tell you, it sounds verbatim to this person. He goes, if I showed you his face, would you remember it? And I said, absolutely. And he showed me his face. And sure enough,
That's
that
insane.
yeah, it's insane, but I think that kind of haunted me, which led me to kind of this um other form of standing up, which is super weird. I more so recently was the victim of a con artist named David Bloom.
Oh my
Um,
God.
I know, crazy. So that's kind of what the podcast is coming out. It looks like
I'm so
it's
sorry that you went through those experiences at the hands of people who are like Jewish on top of it all. Like
I
that's like
know,
a
right? And not only that, they were also like just these people, and it
well, they're
kind of
Jewish by name. They're not really Jewish. Okay, I'm just saying. Whatever. We're
yeah.
disowning. We're disowning all of
They're definitely not, like, obviously. But he this other guy, David Bloom, again, manipulating like a woman in business who's struggling, and that's kind of his MO. He kind of like, anyway, that's a long story, but I ended up finding him out, finding out all of the other, victims, letting them know.
good for you.
Oh, are you still there? Okay.
Yeah,
The camera disappeared, so I'm just making sure you can still see me or whatever. Okay, sorry.
I see
Um,
your gorgeous face. I sure
okay,
do.
there you go. So that turned into an absolute nightmare for my company. He pretended to be an investor. He was going to invest all of this money. He worked on me for 6 months. Literally, my entire business like flew to a meeting that we thought was with the head of Whole Foods. Like it's the craziest story. He had somebody impersonate the head of Whole Foods.
Oh my
Um,
God.
yeah, so it's going to be coming out on a podcast called Once Upon a Crime, and it's basically how I discovered, and not only discovered this, but also found his accomplices.
Wow.
Also, he messed with the wrong girl because now he's in jail, and I've been testifying and going in, and I did a press conference with, a lot of people in California about it. And that was another thing where I wasn't scared to speak up where so many are. Which is interesting. I think that all geared me up for where I am now, which is speaking up, against anti-Semitism and everything. So I think um I've really faced a lot of adversity and I've done it very like it just doesn't scare me. What would scare me is if I didn't say something. You know what I mean? When I saw something crazy like this. So also, he's now been in jail since I, did everything that I did with, a few other people that I had brought together. And now, yeah, so now the ending there is that we'll see what happens, what his sentence will be when I testify. But I think all of these things kind of happened to me to kind of, I don't know, because I can handle them, maybe.
Wow. Yeah. Well, they say that God doesn't give you a challenge unless he knows you're going to pass it, right?
I don't
So,
know. I don't know.
Carolyn, well, you are. You definitely are passing them, and you're unbelievable with flying colors, I should say. Caroline, can you bring me back to the day you felt propelled to post on your social media page about October 7th, which I should mention that that particular post got over 6 million views. What was going on in your mind? How did you find out what was happening? And tell the listeners what you actually did post for those who don't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah, so um I had seen a couple things. Honestly, my I just started dating my boyfriend. He is Israeli. He had seen some stuff on his phone and he was very, um, just very upset and worried and, scared seeing this all unfold on October 7th. And then, you know, to me, it was kind of like, okay, this is another news thing. This is something that will come and go. I couldn't really wrap my head around what it really was because, I'm not privy to all of the conflict in the Middle East or anything. So what got me to speak up that first time was honestly more so my girlfriends. Who called me, two in particular, that I mention all the time, called me. One, my girlfriend Sylvie was in Israel. She was actually there just on a vacation. And now she's, hiding in bomb shelters, hearing rockets flying over her head. And then she was just upset because her very good friends wouldn't kind of say something or speak up or say like this is terrible, and she was really shocked. Called me crying and it was just I was shocked, like whatever's happening in the Middle East, that is awful. And I, I'm not ever going to pretend like I know everything because I just don't. But I know that both histories, are rich and everything, but the only thing I know for sure and knew for sure that day was that my friends shouldn't be treated differently just because they were Jewish, right? All of a sudden they're being attacked. All of a sudden they say one word online about how they lost a friend at the Nova Festival or, you know, um, and they're just being attacked. And
By
my other
mutual
girlfriend,
friends? They were attacked by mutual friends?
oh yeah, like disinvited to events. Yeah, like something as silly as like a birthday post. My friend, I never name names because they know exactly who I'm talking about. They've heard it so many times and they've called me and they've been like, "I'm the person you're talking about." Um,
Uh,
but my girlfriend called me and she was like so upset because it's something as silly as a birthday post. Her good friend was posting everybody's happy birthday post to her, but didn't post her one Jewish friend's happy birthday
wow.
post to her. And like that girl called me crying, and I was like, what is happening? Like, this is insanity. So I just, went to my backyard, wet hair, looked completely awful. And I just said out of pure frustration, because that's kind of how I roll. I just say things when I feel them. And I just said, this isn't right. What is happening here? Like, let's all be honest that this is happening to Jewish people right now. And, I put my phone away and I didn't think anything of it. Thought I would, carry on, with my life. And I went to a concert that night with my boyfriend and I looked at my phone and I was like, what is happening? And I saw like 30,000 views and it was like a couple hours later and I was like, am I in trouble? Like, what is happening? And then the next day, 6 million, so it was, or a couple days later, I don't know, but it got around really quickly. And I think for me, what got me to my next post and then my next post was honestly the outpouring of love. It wasn't about combating the hate because nobody can do that, right? It was about, wow. And even my neighbor, who actually I talk about all the time too, she came knocking on my door, crying. And she was like, I am so scared to even leave my house. I'm taking my mezuzah down. You know, you know, um, I'm not wearing my Jewish star. Like I'm just terrified. I'm telling my kids to hide, not to wear their stars. And I have a girlfriend who they just changed her son's last name because they're that scared.
Yeah, I
So
hear it.
that really freaked me out, and the loving messages from moms, like so many moms, it just touched my heart. So I just kept kind of chugging along there for them, and their kids. It's just
What
not,
was it that you particularly, I mean, okay, so it was the isolation of your friends that are Jewish that really upset you. Was it also like what was going on, like actually on October 7th that like you found out about? Because
of
Caroline, why
course.
is for you, it's common sense to stand up for it, what's obviously wrong. Like raping women, wrong. Kidnapping civilians, wrong. Obviously, torturing human beings, evil. Burning babies alive in an oven, evil. Slicing a pregnant woman in half and killing the baby, beyond monstrous. So like what is it that like the new reality is emerging where people are shouting gender-based violence, okay, sexual slaves, like currently in Gaza, is resistance, right?
Yeah.
Um, and crowds are literally cheering this, but Caroline understood this is not okay. Like, what am I missing here? Why is it that you got it and it's common sense to you and others are not?
I don't know, there's a story, listen, I understand that there is a need, and this might piss you off. I'm not here to be a people pleaser for anybody. Like, I understand that the people in Gaza need a better life. I don't know a day in the life, honestly, prior to all of this for them. And we have to address both histories and people's experiences and existence, but no matter what I watched, my for sureness and how I feel, honestly, really came about when I went to Israel for the first time, because I was like, I'm not going to listen to what everybody has to say. I'm going to meet these people that are being vilified like soldiers and whatnot in the IDF. And I kept thinking to myself, I was like, but everybody has to be a soldier. So and I would see posts about people like vilifying, like it's okay because they're a soldier. And I'm like, no, this young girl like had no choice but to go to the army, right? Because they have no choice because they have that threat constantly. So I think when I went, and then I said no to watching the 47-minute video like 3 times. I was invited to the Knesset. I was honored by the government, which was like the craziest thing ever, which showed me even more so that it was like such a shock that somebody cared, you know what I mean? Which made me feel sad. And I definitely suffer from massive imposter syndrome throughout this entire experience. But there were these 2 little boys on the stage that day, that were brought out, and everything was in Hebrew, so I didn't understand anything.
No
um,
subtitles for Caroline? What were
no,
they thinking?
I was there in person. The only reason I knew I was honored was because I heard my name, and I was like, did he just say my name on stage in front of 2,000, 1,000 people, or however many people filled that auditorium? But then I just remember, and I had the translation app, but it was going so fast. I couldn't even like keep up. But then I just remembered seeing this woman walk on stage, these 2 young boys. They must have been about like 6 and 7 years old. And that's it, right? And I met them. And then I said no for 3 days about seeing the 47-minute video of body cam footage that was captured off the bodies of, Hamas. And this young female soldier pulled me aside and she said, please, she said, and it makes me cry when I think about it. Honestly, I get the chills. She said, please, can you watch this for me? Because nobody believes us. They're all denying that this is happening to us and my friends and everybody. Please, can you watch this? You have a voice and like it's important. And I was like, oh, okay. And I sat in that room and I watched this video, and I don't think I ever cried so loud in my whole life. I couldn't believe, for sure, for sure, for sure, that is not resistance. For sure, that was not something um that any group of people should be proud of. And also okay, so there was this moment in that video when these 2 little boys watched their father be murdered in front of their eyes. And then they're covered in his blood. They run into another room. They're talking to each other and they're going, that's real. Daddy died. Daddy's dead. That really just happened. That really just happened. And he was like, I know. He's like, I know. It's real. It's real. And the the terrorist walks into their fridge, tells them to shut up, opens the fridge, takes out a soda, and is like telling his family how proud he is on his phone, right? Like filming everything. And they keep saying, make sure you get that on camera. Make sure you get that on camera. And the screams of joy as they were doing these things to these people were the most terrifying thing I've ever heard in my life. And then all of a sudden it clicked to me that those were the 2 little boys that I met and that were on stage.
Oh, wow.
And now I'm screening a film of their father being murdered in front of them because nobody believes them. That is the word. Now their father being murdered is now being screened everywhere. And they have to relive this over and over and over again. And I just lost it completely. And I knew from that point on, like, there's 2 things going on here, right? There is a 2-state issue, land issue, and I totally understand that I know shit about that, right? But I also know that what I saw is the scariest thing I've ever seen in my life, and people should not be treated badly because they're terrified of that happening to them, you know? And I know that there was a ceasefire on October 6th, like on October, 7th. And
Yeah.
I know that it's very scary because at any moment somebody can walk out with a suicide bomb on their back. And, the stories I heard of that happening regularly, like prior to this, like for years and years. Um,
Carolyn, it's not just that, but the people, sorry, not to interrupt you, but the
oh
people
yeah,
that on October 7th were hit the hardest were the ones who were for peace, were helping the
that was the
Palestinians.
next thing I was gonna say.
Yeah.
Yeah. When I went to Kibbutzberry, and I had my other like serious breakdown, um, I stood in one of those apartments that were completely destroyed and actually heard the story of the young girl, and her boyfriend. And I was in their house watching, their stuff was everywhere. And I ran out crying, and after hearing that story, and I asked the young soldier, her name's Maya, and I said, "Why would you live this close to the border, knowing that there's a threat like that? Why?
Mhm.
What,
Mhm.
I wouldn't live there with my kids, like knowing that that's a possibility." And when she said to me, she said, "Because we want to show them we love them. We want to show them we're not scared and that we do want peace." And then I'm just bawling my eyes out because I'm like, and these are the people that were like, you know, treated this way. And I know that there's
It
more
goes further than
stories.
that,
Yeah.
Caroline. I don't know if she told you, but a lot of these people who lived in the kibbutz literally would physically help these Palestinian people, take them to medical
Yeah.
facilities for whatever it was that they needed. They would help them with food. They would help them with jobs. They like literally transported them back and forth. These terrorists literally knew the people that they
Yeah.
killed, that they tortured, and they knew to look for, like, if someone was missing, they knew someone else belonged in that house because they'd been there getting help from these people. But you know what scares me is the trajectory the culture is taking, because to me it's a sign of a deep-rooted rot in our society when violence is normalized under the pretext of political struggle. And quite frankly, it puts everyone in danger, everyone in a
Yeah.
very dark path forward for humanity if this is left unchecked. Have you spoken, I'm just curious, to any friends or acquaintances that are macro, like with macro platforms about this, and how have they reacted?
What do you mean by that? Sorry.
Because you have friends, I mean, from what it seems to be on your on the net, you have acquaintances that are like Kim Kardashian and Nicole Richie and those people. I'm saying, have you spoken to anyone with like a large platform about this? And without mentioning names, like, can you tell us like the reaction and like, you know, what they
No, I mean, listen, I don't know who feels what unless they've reached out to me. So no, I don't know how everybody feels. I think it's a hard one, right? Like unless you're going to Israel like me, I don't think you're going to have the same understanding of, and personal stories and spending time with hostage families. Like it's really we can't expect celebrities to really have all the information. And I think that's why it's really hard when, you know, um, I don't know, I saw something funny the other day that was just like, why are we expecting, actors to say the right thing or do the right thing when it comes to this? Because, you know, they're spending their time acting. And, some of them are vocal about it because they've done research and whatnot and found what they want to attach themselves to. But no, I mean, I'm definitely I have not been reached out to by any of those people. No.
Right. Why do you think, though, that the woke community is like blindly knee-jerk reaction speaking about ceasefire, ignoring the hostages' plight, ignoring that the Holocaust happened on October 7th and that it was the deadliest day for Jews since the Holocaust? And even, by the way, speaking of what you're speaking about, at the Oscars, we saw a trend where you have celebrities wearing the blood hand pin, which stems from a lynching of two men who took a wrong turn into Ramallah, and literally their organs were literally like paraded around.
Yeah.
Why would the woke community like reconcile with that over, like, what do you think is, it doesn't even make sense, because the gay people would be thrown off rooftops literally in
Yeah.
Gaza, and
Yeah.
they're accepted in Israel. So why, I can't make sense of it. Can you?
I I don't know. I don't think that they're bad people. I don't think that they're trying, I don't believe like when people say, "Oh, they just hate Jews and this and that." I don't believe that. I think that people don't have all of the information. I think it's really hard, and I think, I've actually been with celebrity friends who have walked on stage and literally gotten like a briefing right before, and like this is something, so I don't know how deep everybody's knowledge is before they, represent something. I don't know what to say about it, that obviously represents something different to the story that they're being told, you know? So, but I don't think it's as uh demonic as people are making it out to be, the conspiracy kind
Do
of.
you think it's just a trend, like, "Oh, this is in vogue, and let's just go what everybody else is saying, and
Oh,
therefore there's a
I think,
fear?"
listen, I completely understand. It's like the underdog story. Like that's a really, it makes sense, like you want to support people who have been struggling and been down for a long time, and then they see the person that's more in power in a lot of ways, and um you know they feel like everybody wants to help the people that they see, that are more helpless. Do you know what I
Right,
mean?
that are viewed as more helpless, really,
Yeah.
because there's, like, a lot of Muslim countries and one little teeny Jewish state and whatever, I'm not gonna get into that, but
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that that's where it all comes from, honestly. Like, the Jewish communities fought really hard to like build really bright futures and help each other out. And I think sadly, because of some of the ideology, um, you know, Gaza could be a beautiful place, and I hope that
it
it
was
is
a
one
beautiful
day.
place.
Yeah.
Before this all happened, if you go on social media, you could see that it was really a gorgeous tourist place as well, like, they had all fruits, vegetables, beautiful hotels, gorgeous beaches. I mean, it was have you spoken to the other side? Because I know a lot of people I've seen on your comments that they're like, "Well, you should really hear our side too." Have you done that?
Yeah, I mean, listen, I'm willing to speak to anybody who wants to speak to me. I think it's just harder to find people that want to have the conversation. I've reached out to a few friends here and there, so I don't, I'm always down to listen, to I listened to a really great podcast the other day, a guy who really had not much to do with either side, and he developed the Gaza Surf Club, helping, people in Gaza learn to surf and all of that. So he tells this story from a very objective, um, a very different point of view, and that it did make, it makes sense. There's things that make sense on both sides, but at the end of the day, it doesn't. We can't allow people to do what they did on October 7th, no matter what,
Yeah.
and cheered for. That's the part that really rubs me the wrong way.
Right. No, I hear that for sure. Caroline, what are you doing next? Because you mentioned you're doing a podcast. Like give us a little bit of details as to what is upcoming. Tell us first. We want to know.
Yeah, so my company Pizza Girl is really like evolving and developing into, such a really incredible company. We're, looking to open our first brick and mortar location in Malibu, which is really exciting.
Wow.
Our direct to consumer business is amazing. We're doing, incredible pizza ovens and all kinds of different things like that, which are like so exciting. And then, our supermarket expansion is on the rise as well, with awesome supermarket products. And I'm now speaking all over the world, for all different types of things, hate and anti-Semitism, of course, and what I've witnessed, yes, but I'm also speaking, to college kids and kids around the world on, how to kind of not go down certain paths that I went down, and, how to like, you know, you know, I'm becoming like a bit of a speaker in a lot of ways, and doing a lot of speaking engagements, which is something I never thought I would do, or people really want to hear what I have to say. um
Man plans and God laughs. So like you had a trajectory for yourself and you know what? God designed it for you. So that's amazing. Can you tell us a bit about your products? Because I know they're OU certified and I
Yes,
want
my sauces are my pasta sauces. They're pizza and pasta sauces. You can use them for anything, chicken dishes, veggie dishes. They are all OU certified, and then they are also organic. There's no added sugar. They are the best tasting. They are my grandmother's recipes. In America, you can get them at pizzagirl.com. We're looking to expand in other parts of the world.
they're not in Brooklyn, are they? Because I tried looking if I wanted to support you, and I looked in a few. I looked at the ShopRite, I looked at the Stop and Shop. I couldn't find them anywhere.
Yeah, we're not in ShopRite and Stop and Shop yet.
Can we request it? Can I like call them and tell them to carry you? Because I would do that.
Yeah, you know, we're looking to expand hopefully to more like the Whole Foods type stores, just because our price point is a little bit higher. But the pizzagirl.com ships nationally. So you can head over there if you can't find us. And we also have a store locator on the website where people can find all of the stores that carry Pizza Girl as well.
That's amazing. You know, Carolyn, if you end up coming to Brooklyn, or if you want, we could arrange something where you come and speak because I know that people love you here and they would run to hear you, literally.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's
it's the truth. It's the truth. So,
that's
listen, as we wrap up this really insightful conversation with the beautiful inside and out Caroline, I'm reminded of the power of an individual and the action of one. This interview has truly enriched not only me and my life, but I know it will be appreciated by everyone watching. Caroline, you're a beacon for humanity. You're a reminder that amidst the shadows of indifference and evil, there are shining examples of good and compassionate people. Guys, the site is pizzagirl.com. And Caroline, can you also share with us your handles on your different social media platforms?
absolutely. My company is at Pizza Girl, and then my personal up and down all around journey is at Caroline Demore. And pizzagirl.com is my website, and that's it. I like to keep it simple.
Amazing. Caroline, thank you once again for this interview, for everything you do. And I'm really going to pray for your continued success and your safety.
Thank you so much, and I'm sending you all the same good vibes, you and your family and everyone in your community, sending my love to everyone.
Thank you. One
Thank you
second.
so much.